Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. How many people have actually spent money on Kickstarter? Yeah, pretty good. All right, well, I'm not in that demographic that said somebody put me on their email and got me to invest into Kickstarter or something because I was part of their network. I thought, okay, Kickstarter, here's a wonderful thing to start playing with. And I said, I want to see what the experience is like for an investor. So I started actually seeking out things that I would invest in, and I started trying to do the little mental calculations, says, why did this work for me? You know, what made me spend some money on this and what was going on? And keeping notes on what worked and what didn't work. So, and what also made me happy and made me not so happy after I spent the money, that sort of thing. So, Barbara, to your point, which is you've got a nonprofit, and what do I do? I want to raise some money, what do I do? I found this wonderful thing, which was basically a Peace Corps volunteer who had a village, and they had the ability to weave silk. And she started creating silk scarves. And so she put this campaign together. And when I found this campaign, I mean, literally, I spent hours just scrolling through Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns just to see what was up there and what I liked. I got to the point where if you're putting out a CD of your new music, I'm sorry, you know, I don't have time to listen to your boring music, you know. And so I started going for different, you know, topics, that sort of thing. This one really struck me, and what struck me about this was a good project, and it looked to me like it was something that would help these villagers become self-sufficient. And that's what tugged at my heartstrings and said, now is the time to invest in this. And the other thing that was in here was, hey, I got something really cool. Not only that, I took a leap of faith back. They don't have a date on here. Oh yeah, they do. October of 2013. And I went, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna cross my fingers, maybe I'll get it by Christmas. Turned out, it happened. I got the scarf in time for Christmas. I gave it to a lady friend. It came with the brochure that said, not only is this scarf, but it's handmade and you're helping this village. Best present ever. And so that one worked really well. So the things that happened for me was, it had a good story, there was a good product, and I really felt like I was investing in something that was going to endure or create more good in the future. So that was a really successful purchase for me, or investment for me as an investor, because I felt I was investing. Not only did I get something, but I was investing. So then I visited my doctor, and this guy is old school. And so I started telling him that there was cool stuff out there, and he was like, yeah. So I found this, right? Let's see how I'm doing today. No. Hey, 96% oxygen and 79, not bad. I haven't gone over 100 yet, so I'm not really that nervous. We'll see if I can get it up. Hey, we're up to 89. All right, so I found this, and I took it in and showed it to my doctor. Not only is it just a nice little pulse oximeter, but of course, it's Bluetooth, and it goes to my iPad, and I can email him my stuff. So I was telling, it's Daryl, right? Earlier, I pulled a fast one on my doctor. I'm in his office, I'm showing this thing, I pulled up my iPad, I did all this, and I said, and I can email this to you. What's your email address? That's how I got his email address. So now I get to shoot him emails and go, hey, what's going on with my appointment? You know, and I'm sure I irritate him, but it was a fun thing. The good news about this was they had the prototype. It looked like it was really possible. What they were asking for was help us bring it from prototype to manufacturing. And I'm saying to myself, I'm willing to push this kind of technology because it's not just going to help me, it's going to help the rest of the world. And so that was another one of those investment kind of things that said, hey, not only do I get something, and by the way, I got this for a cheaper price than it's now available for on the market today. So one of the things was, it was a deal for me. So that was way fun. And I had another appointment with my doctor, and so I wasn't ready to stop there. So I kept looking on the on all of the Indiegogo and all that, and I found an even better product, which is how do I get this on here? Blood pressure monitor. Also Bluetooth. Also run by my iPad, and let's see if I can get the things started up here. Not that one. You fools. Okay. Blood pressure. Start. We'll hold it next to the microphone. And here it goes. I mean, and it's the whole thing. I'm going to turn it off because as soon as you see my numbers, I'm going to get all kinds of advice about how to bring my blood pressure down. But what a wonderful thing. It's Bluetooth. It keeps a record. It's got, it'll remind you every day that now's the time to take your blood pressure, that sort of thing. And I started telling my doctor, I want you to remove this from my bill every office visit because I'll just send you my blood pressure ahead of time before I come in for it. So these two things were pretty remarkable because I started seeing what was possible, and I started thinking about, you know, where's the direction we're going for self-medication, self-monitoring, all that kind of stuff. And so I bought this one because that was a good lesson for my doctor, who's astonished. He's afraid for me to come in for any visits now. You know? So this was the cardio arm, and this thing is $99. 99 bucks for something you can have at your house now, and provides better monitoring than what I could do from a doctor's office. You know, I'd have to go into the doctor's office if I wanted to do. This way I can do it every day, and I can actually have my little chart and watch what I'm doing. And I can actually tell now the days that I exercise, blood pressure goes down. Days I don't exercise, whoops. So it actually is keeping me on track. It's a pretty nifty thing. Very successful. Then we come to Thing Charger. So what a cool thing. Everybody needs this. You plug it into the wall. You still get the two outlets, right? And now you can plug your iPhone or your iPad or whatever on top and charge whatever you have to do. And you can stack them up 2-3 thick. So you can put your iPad in the back and you put your phone in the front. And so this was ended on January 12th, 2014. And so I'm thinking this is pretty cool. And they're giving, you know, this looks like a killer product, right? And they're giving you this push that we've already lined up a manufacturer, we've got everything going, we've got all the stuff going. And so I gave him my money, right? And so what was the first thing that happened after I gave him money? I started getting the emails that said, by the way, if you tell your friends and you get 5 friends to sign up, you get 1 for free. That sort of thing. So I started getting all of those emails, and oops. And then I started getting the excuses. And what happened was, if we look at this, they wanted, they were looking for 25,000. They got the 647, and they did not have Plan 3. So they were so successful that they weren't able to manufacture the product, and they weren't able to make delivery. So I started getting the excuses. And the other thing, now we've heard a little bit about the stretch goals, right? Well, these guys went into another mode that wasn't quite stretch goals. Did anybody ever see the cartoon Up? And it's got the dog in there, and the dog's got a collar on, and you can hear, squirrel! Right? These guys are in squirrel mode. So they were starting to make the thing charger, but then Apple came out with the new iPad that has the lightning connector, squirrel! And so yesterday, this was so timely, I just got the email, another excuse why they're late, which says, oh, we have now included the lightning connector. And so it's going to take a little bit longer for us to get it out because we've now gone on to the lightning. So I'm over these guys. You know, I'm sorry, we're done. You know, I don't care if you ever send me the thing or not. You know, it's been over a year since I gave him my money. I ain't got nothing except the excuses. Bad experience. I'm not recommending this one to my friends. But yeah, so this isn't part 3, this is part 111. So I've been getting the excuses every couple of weeks for, we're still making, oh yeah, and, you know. And one of the excuses I loved was, oh, we've delayed because we haven't got our United Laboratories certification. Go back to, there it is. On the original Indiegogo campaign, they already had the United Laboratories certification, or they faked it. One or the other. So anyway, a couple of really good experiences that really tugged at my heartstrings and got me out there, and one bummer. So that's a story. So, thank you so much. Just thought I'd give you a little from my point of view here.
Let's give Steve a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Let's give Christopher Williams a big round of applause, and he's going to explain it.
Okay, I'm last. I know you guys are all like half asleep, but I'm a video game guy, so I'm fun and loud and annoying and interesting, and at least you won't be bored. So I actually have my most popular blog article. I'm not a blogger, but my most popular blog article was an article I wrote called 20 Ways to Screw Your Kickstarter. And this talk is kind of out of that. So I got rid of the screw because it seemed kind of negative, but it seemed to really get people's interest apparently. So, lesson learned, I guess, on writing blogs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons of Kickstarter. I'll skip over that pretty quickly because a lot of people covered some of that already. Talk about our Kickstarter that we did, and actually we sort of did it twice, and a lot of lessons we learned from that. Some of the big strengths of Kickstarter is the low barrier to entry. Nobody here really talked about that, but one of the things that I still find fascinating about Kickstarter is that people really don't talk about their experience. Like, nobody really even cares. Like, as long as you can get up in a video and like sound cool and passionate about what you're doing, and I think almost nobody really does any background because we're all busy people. And so you don't need to have a whole bunch of degrees and certifications and stuff necessarily to be able to sell your product. You do need to have a good design, a prototype or something like that, and nobody cares if you have a business plan either. And so I think that's kind of cool. It's definitely proven its ability for small to huge projects. One thing I didn't hear anybody mention is it's really ideal for higher risk creative projects. So video gaming in particular has done very, very well on Kickstarter. Because video gaming is at its core really a very high risk creative endeavor. And a strong and helpful community. And I still think it's sexy. We talk about people saying it's like, you know, maybe it's on its way down, and maybe it is. But if your project's on Kickstarter, it's going to generate probably more PR buzz than if it's on another competitor site. What are some of the challenges? You've got to be able to sell your idea. I mean, there's nothing quicker than watching somebody's video and you're into it 10 seconds through and like, I'm already bored. I move on to the next one. So what you did, Steve, in terms of researching tons of different Kickstarters, my first recommendation to anybody that wants to do a Kickstarter is go out there and start looking at hundreds of them and start funding them. You know, see what it's like from the other side. What did they get right? And then make sure you make notes for your own Kickstarter. It's really not good for complex solutions. We already heard about this. You guys have these really cool technical things, and I'm an engineer, and even I'm getting lost. So lesson learned there. Short time frame to raise the money, and he's talking about even, was it you suggesting the 2 weeks? And I'm like, I'm really curious about that. So, because our Kickstarter experiences were pretty similar with a really dead point in the middle. So the biggest thing, of course, is that you only get the money if you hit your goal. And you're going to see, when you see my numbers here, you'll probably freak. So, because we're a classic thing with that. So, anyway, you have the upfront video production cost. And don't, you know, really think about this. Because when I noticed, at least when I was looking at all the Kickstarters, I mean, I went like 200 or 300 when I did my research. And the number one criteria I saw between success and failure was the quality of the video. Was the lighting good? Was the audio good? Was it engaging? Was it short? You know, all of these things were the number one metric that I saw, and I'm not a statistician. I didn't actually I should have, but I didn't. So anyway, but that was what I saw. And so we spent a fair bit of money on getting our video right, and I think we did. And you still need to market your campaign. Despite your fantastic success, almost everybody else I've seen really has shown that they have to market their product and their campaign outside of the Kickstarter effort. So getting on to our actual project. So we were doing a remake of a classic game from the 80s that I really loved as a child called Mule. And we had involved the family that made the original game. The family of the person that created it had died. And that was a whole mess. Never work with a family in IP. It was, wow, that was. I would have much rather have worked with Electronic Arts. They would have been much better or easier to work with. Anyway, so we actually did two versions of our Kickstarter. We did one originally, we were trying $500,000 was our goal. So this was back in 2012, I think. And we did a fair number of things right, and I'll get to those in a minute. But we ended up short. About 2 weeks into it, we'd raised $150,000, which is still great, I guess. But it was clear we were not going to reach the $500,000 goal. Because with those big projects like that, if you don't get enough momentum in the beginning, you're not going to get there. So 2 weeks into the project, and it didn't help the family was also being a complete pain in the butt. So we decided to cancel the project. So we never finished it and left it at that. So we decided to sort of come around at round two without the family's support, without the licensing and stuff, and did it again with a $50,000 goal. And we actually got a huge amount of press write-up because we were $28 short of our $50,000 goal. So all those press people that weren't returning my calls earlier on, suddenly, sir, your project failed. Can I interview you for our article? I'm like, where were you when my project needed $28?
You didn't put that in yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of dark stuff. I'll get to that, and that's one of the things. So. Yes. To be honest, I mean, we kind of let it fail because we didn't really want to do it. We were figuring out the math. We'd originally raised $150,000 on the first project. We had people's expectations set based on that first project of what they wanted and what we wanted to deliver. We had a whole bunch of stretch goals out to like $500,000. We figured, okay, we'll just do the project for 10% less, 10% of the original, and have all these stretch goals. But the reality was, the $50,000 project, we couldn't deliver something that I felt comfortable putting my name on. And at the end of the day, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to let it fail because I don't want In fact, we actually pulled one of our pledges to make it fail. So I've never told anybody that. So, but anyway. So like I said, we had a lot of license issues and so on. I was going to show the video, but I won't because we're short on time. So I'll talk about some of the 20 ways to screw your Kickstarter, or 20 things we sort of learned. A lot of people, pretty much the common theme I've heard from everybody here is planning, planning, planning. One thing, obviously, I learned really hard is setting your goal to the minimum you can to build your app, because I basically failed on both my Kickstarters for that, right? The first one I went too high, and the second one I went too low. So maybe Goldilocks, I'll get it right on the third time, but probably not. I've moved on to other things. So, planning your launch and closing dates when the media is likely to be quiet. This is really, really, really important. It depends a little bit on your industry, but if you're in a gaming industry, for me, for example, and I try and launch, say, before E3, terrible idea. E3 is this giant event in Las Vegas that gets tons of press and coverage, or actually it's in San Francisco. Anyway, whatever. The media is not going to listen to you because they're busy with all the bigger, more noisy stuff. So really plan those dates. Do your marketing and media plan before launch. I think pretty much everybody said that, so I won't go into that anymore. One thing that I think we learned from our first Kickstarter, we were going for this retro 80s thing in our first Kickstarter. And I don't think we really thought through, is there $500,000 worth of people out there that are into that? The original game that we were remaking only sold 48,000 copies, which is not really very many copies. And it's kind of an iconic game, and it's kind of famous, but still, how big is that market? And so one of the things that we did with our second Kickstarter is we sort of widened our audience and tried to make it more mainstream, more modern, interested, and so on. And I don't know, that was kind of a mixed blessing. If we had actually launched that way in the first place, it might have been better. So anyway, in conclusion on that is kind of think about those big things before you start. Who's your audience? How big, how small can you make your project? I love the idea of having the multiple levels with, how can I make my project minus minus, project minus, project plus plus, et cetera, in different forms. That's a great idea. Communication, probably the one thing that we did really well, and the one thing that I've heard from a lot of other people, folks, including some today, but maybe not. Nobody here has actually mentioned about friends and family, really. We were very careful to line up friends and family in advance to launch strong. Sites like KickTrack that were mentioned briefly earlier. Anybody who's into Kickstarter is going to go look at that immediately. They're going to say, okay, are they going to hit their goal? If they continue this trajectory, are they going to hit their goal? Because they don't want to invest in something that's going to fail. And it's stupid because if you fail, they don't lose any money at all. But that's not how people think anyways. They want to back a winning horse. So, you need to look like the winning horse out of the gate if you can. And so really having that strong launch will help. It'll also really help you get press. One thing I discovered with press too, a lot of them had things lined up and they're like, well, let's just see how you do in the first week. And then if you do well in the first week, then we'll do a cool write-up for you. So getting that strong thing out of the door will really help. One thing I had to do, which I think was it Ali, or I forgot her name, the lady that did the mud slinging stuff. She was talking about how hard it is to reach out to your network, but this is what you have to do. I didn't reach out to my LinkedIn network on the first time around, and I really should have. I don't know why. I'm building my dream product. It's actually something that was newsworthy. I got written up in all these cool articles in gaming magazines and stuff. Why am I not thrilled to tell everybody in the universe about how awesome this is? So because I'm kind of an introvert, even though I don't seem like it on stage here, but one thing we did on the first project that we did really well was we had a community manager with experience and personal passion on the project, and that really helped because they were able to manage things. It wasn't just me trying to drive everything. Now, obviously, I'm looking at things from a larger project, more money standpoint. You can't afford that, but think about it, because while you're busy talking to press and emailing people and so on, it might be great to have somebody that can be out there responding to Twitter posts and Facebooking and all that kind of stuff, so that you don't have to do it all yourself, because it's going to be a very fast 30 days. And yes, so you're going to have to spend a huge amount of time. So basically, if you don't plan on doing anything else during the 30 days, I don't see how even on a small project you'd be able to do anything else other than responding and researching press and so on. Getting your press release out on the day of launch obviously is a plus. One thing we did is we set up an exclusive with somebody. So we did a fair amount of research and looked at the various major bloggers that release news for stuff like ours and decided who we wanted to do it, you know. And then we started researching him and making connections with him in advance. And then when we were ready to actually do it, we talked to him and said, hey, you know, we've identified you. We really think you've got the strongest kick for our audience, and we'd like to offer you the exclusive on this, you know, for 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that. And they love that, at least the big guys do. This is something I suck at. I suck at follow through. I'm so bad at follow through. Oh my God, I'm just terrible at it. I'm writing all these wonderful notes here, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to move on to the next thing, and I'm going to totally forget about all these awesome notes that I've written. So I'm a terrible person to handle the media because I'm not going to respond to them quickly. I'm not going to give them quick feedback. I'm not going to be like super, because they need to move quick. I mean, press are either dead and not interested, or you're like the hottest thing on fire, and like there's no in between. So again, having a community manager that could help you out with that would be good. One thing is, you guys are kind of small. Most people here are pretty small, so it's probably not a concern. But if you have to have a committee, one thing that really hurt us on that first project was they had sign off on like frickin' everything. And so we couldn't have FAQ items, every press interaction, like they had to sign off on everything. It was like this gigantic weight pulling our entire Kickstarter down. I will never do that again. And the irony is that they didn't even have the rights that they claimed they did. So anyway, so the sort of summary of all that is that you're going to have to be able to move very, very fast when you get in there. So you have to have everything set up, ducks in a row, so that you can move fast once you actually get out of the gate. So social media. So this is actually one of my quotes from my 20 Ways to Screw Your Kickstarter, because this is actually what I said at one point. I'm like, we don't need to use Twitter. It's only for like kids and celebrities. I mean, I'm actually a fairly young engineering type guy, and I never got into Twitter. Like, I just don't quite get it, or at least I didn't. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Well, you're really going to be in trouble when it comes to Kickstarter, because Kickstarters are completely, and crowdfunding are so driven by social media that, you know, you just have to be present there. And I think, I'm trying to remember, I'm a big fan of statistics, and I've got a couple towards the end here, but one of the ones that I saw somewhere was the #1 metric for success, and you mentioned it briefly in your talk, was the extent of your social network. So, you know, how many friends do you have on Facebook? How many people do you have on your LinkedIn network? How many Twitter followers do you have, et cetera? That's the #1 metric for success. So, getting your team and your avid fans talking about your project as soon as you can. One thing we didn't do, which I'm totally going to do if we do again, is to have a fanboy lined up in advance. So have somebody that's already in your community, or a fan, or I mean, hell, they could even be an employee, I guess. I mean, whatever. And I know lots of places do that, but having somebody that can be out there and be a bit of a rallying point and help kind of start that chatter and that buzz going. Because I'm not a social media guy, so like I'm not really going to be able to do that. So what we did right. One thing we did is we really communicated our passion well. Like my video, it's like you can clearly tell like I'm really into this. Our video is kind of funny. You can go look up Alpha Colony and go watch our video. I actually throw old computers on the ground, and it's really funny. So we got lots of people that loved it for that. So lots of Kickstarters I see, they start out like, hey, you want to buy my, like I'm so gone, I've moved on to the next project already. So like you need to convince me that at least you care about it's the best thing ever, or how am I ever going to even think it might be the best thing ever? I already talked about a professional, engaging, compelling video. The audio and lighting matter. You know, I saw several of the videos that came up there. It's like there was lots of stuff in the background, and the lighting and the audio wasn't that good. And like, this doesn't cost that much. You can get, for a couple $100s, you can get somebody to come in that's got proper equipment and can give you good lighting and good audio and give you a good video result. Especially if you're trying to go for more money. Because if people are, like in my $500,000 case, there were no $500,000 campaigns that didn't have a professional video, period. So perhaps for smaller projects, not absolutely critical, but I think it's still, even today, even for smaller projects, it's really sort of expected. Reaching out to the fan community in advance, this was something we also did really well. There was lots of fan websites in terms of our area. We were able to reach out to them in advance and kind of give them a whisper of what was to come and kind of get a little pre-buzz going, and that worked out really, really well. And somebody else also mentioned, actually, I think it was you, Jack, about researching other Kickstarters before. They can either feature you or promote you or connect you. This is really common in the video game area in particular because there's so many video game related Kickstarters. And so it's very easy to get similar ones to sort of promote yours. Although the one thing I didn't think about was looking at the blogs that posted them. And I'm like, that's a great idea. I'm totally doing that next time. So hopefully I'll remember that. One thing we did, which nobody here mentioned, so I'll mention it, is that we sent out fan wallpaper and like other sort of goodies to get people excited about it in advance. We had little ringtones and wallpaper and stuff that we could send out sort of during the campaign. And they were cool little things. If you were a fan of the original Mule game, like you would love to have a little Mule like phone ringing sound or have a wallpaper for that. Especially if you have a sort of nerdy audience, they're gonna love that kind of stuff. And it takes all of like 10 minutes to put together a piece of wallpaper or a ringtone. So other things we did right. So we actually did a lot of things right. Responding to comments and posts, you've got to do this like daily. Because if you don't respond within like 4 hours, everybody thinks you've shut down, gone out of business, and moved to Zimbabwe or something. I don't know. Like, it's really ridiculous, but people want instant gratification. Because they're worried about it. They want to trust that you really exist and you're going to deliver. And if you respond quickly, a lot of people actually send test remarks or test comments and see if you get a response before they pledge. I actually do that. So, like, if they're not responsive, then if they're not responsive to me now, they're probably not going to be responsive to me after they've already got my money. So, and I have that same, I'm actually pledged to that same Kickstarter you have, and no, I haven't gotten it. So I really want that door lock. I have that really cool door lock. They were supposed to send a video like on my phone, and it was like 3 years late or something. So, so one thing that we did okay, but I think we could do even better, and I didn't hear anybody talk about really, other than briefly one, is coming up with some really exclusive and creative rewards for your VIPs. One of the things that I actually brought a handout, if you wouldn't mind, somebody could pass out the handouts, which thankfully somebody actually ran off and copied for me. Thank you. That was awesomeness. So I realized that the charts I had were kind of hard to read. But one of the things I'm going to talk about right at the end with the stats is that the Kickstarters that typically do the best are the ones that have a wide range of rewards, and really what really sets them off are these big high-end VIP rewards. What can you offer somebody that they would be willing to pay or think there's value for $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever? And so we offered, First Founder, which is like this title you get from the original game, and we had sort of like each have like a sponsor, a particular race in the game. People want to have creative input. They want to have creative involvement in your project, and that's one of the things you can definitely offer VIPs other than a launch party or sort of the obvious kinds of things. I already talked about the respected blogger baking your advance. One thing we did, which I wish we had done more of, and I definitely will do, I don't think I'll ever do any kind of Kickstarter again without having some kind of celebrity or industry lead somehow involved, because that name recognition and that facial recognition on your video is going to be like an instant sell. I mean, I can tell you, for example, I'm a busy guy. I don't have time to read the videos, but when the Oculus Rift video came along, and there were 3 or 4 guys in my industry that I respect highly that started talking about it, I didn't even need to see the rest of the video. I didn't care. Because 4 guys in my industry that are top leaders say this is awesome, I believe them. Checkmate, move on. And a lot of other people feel that same way. So having them endorse your product can be huge. And we had a guy named Trip Hawkins, who was the previous CEO of Electronic Arts many millions of years ago, for those other dinosaurs in here besides me. And I've been noticing this trend even more and more. It seems like Kickstarters are using this. When we did it, it was actually kind of uncommon, I think 2 years ago. It seems like it's much more common now. I don't know, you're more in touch with it than I am, but it seems like it's more common than it used to be. So tips, talked about setting the right goal. Timing is important. Creating unique rewards. Some other people talked about budgeting your ship reward cost. We didn't have a lot of tangible rewards, but the worst thing you can do is end up having your Kickstarter fund and then losing money. And to me, I think that's the moral of the $28 story, is that. And really put your heart into the video, because that's probably my #1 pet peeve, is probably 3/4 of the videos, they don't seem like they're really excited, and this is the most important thing they've ever done in their life. And if you can't convey that somehow on the video, or hire somebody, then hire somebody who can, because there are people that can. And like I said, VIPs, one of the darker things that's pretty commonly practiced, but maybe not really realized as much, is that most people usually sort of put in some pre-seeder money and some ante-money into their Kickstarter projects, which is technically not allowed, but if it's sort of through like an employee or a third party, like it's technically allowed. So, think about that, how you can sort of, how do they call that, sort of I know I said ante because I'm a poker guy, but like, is there a way you can sort of help pre-seed the money and kind of get that ball rolling, both in the social media world as well as the money world? So I already talked about browsing some Kickstarter projects, fund some, find a need or passion of yours, which probably don't need to talk about with these kind of guys. Working on your elevator pitch. I mean, again, if you can't sell me in 30 seconds about why this is so awesome for you and everybody else, then you need to work on that before you do anything else. Creating a video script, setting up a launch plan, and go for it. So I'm a huge fan of metrics. I have a couple metric slides. I'm almost done. This is like my third last slide. This one was from Distimo, and this is about a year old, so it's not super recent, unfortunately. The next one I have is, but this one's. What this is showing you here is, you guys, this is on the handouts that I gave, because I know it's like super hard to read on the screen probably. But what it's showing you is the average pledge amounts on the top, and then on the bottom it's showing you the popularity by revenue total. So basically, who's making the most money on Kickstarter? Well, about a year ago, it's pretty clear gaming is where it's at in terms of whether or not you're actually profiting is a whole other question, but in terms of revenue generated, they're doing well. Other apps, tools and productivity, social, music and video do very well, and so on. Certain things do not do as well. You can see business apps, education is like this little dot that barely even shows up on there, unfortunately. I mean, it's sad, but think about what category your product falls into and see. Also, the amount of money that people expect to spend varies. Gaming is super popular, but look at what these average pledges are. They're like $5. So that's huge. So that means if you're going to do a video game, you better have a huge base. You're not going to be able to fly by with 200 backers or 500 backers even. You need to have something that's kind of a much bigger mainstream appeal. And that was a lesson we had to learn sort of the hard way on the first Kickstarter. If I'd had this graph, I might have done things differently. But when you look at things like travel and tools, people are willing to pay more for those. When you get to some specialty areas like hotels and fitness, they're willing to pay a lot more. So, and you'll also notice that the Apple products versus Android, no surprise there, Apple guys pay more than Android. Sorry. This is a study, a meta study that was done of 5,000 Kickstarters, I think, or something like that. It was done by one of the universities. I apologize, I don't know. I actually participated in the study, and we got all the results back from it. And of all the things they had, and they had all sorts of cool stuff in there, and you can look it up online. It's called Dynamics of Crowdfunding is the title of the study, so you can Google it, I'm sure, and find it. The most interesting thing to me was these graphs they had where they had the pledge levels of failed projects versus the pledge levels of successful projects. So what this is showing you, and it's a little hard to read and understand, I had to look at it like 3 times to kind of get it, but what it's trying to show you here is so these ones over here were the ones that failed, these are the ones that succeeded, and what this is showing you, and unfortunately the axes are not even the same, which is like a huge statistical no-no, but at any rate, because this graph would actually look even more pronounced if it was on the same scale as that, so it's actually they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, I think, by the scale they use. But at any rate, what it's showing you is the percent funding of the donors paid versus how successful they were. And so you can see, the projects that failed had a lot of really small people that put in percentage-wise of what their target goal was. And the tail end dropped off really fast. But the projects that succeeded had a really nice bell curve that went really far out. So that means this is where your $1,000 donors and your $500 donors and stuff are living out here. The VIPs, as I call them, are living out in this world. But you can see they've even got stuff in the hundreds and those middle categories. There's a really nice big spread. So for somebody who $100 is not a lot of money, you've got a reward for them. If $500 is a lot of money, so you need to think about that. If I have $1,000, what can you give me that, because there are people out there that $1,000 is not a lot of money. They'll happily drop that down on something. So do you have something cool enough that they would think is worth $1,000? So Any questions on this? I know this is a little confusing, but I thought this is kind of a really insightful graph for me. Okay, cool. So lastly, I do offer entrepreneurial coaching to other folks through Tyrockys. So if you're interested in getting some help with your entrepreneurial ideas, including Kickstarter stuff, I'm happy to help you with, polishing up your pitch. I've actually got a spreadsheet. I've helped 8 Kickstarters fund now. It's kind of ironic that I've actually not successfully funded a Kickstarter myself, and I've helped 8 other people get theirs funded. So it's a little embarrassing. I feel like I don't even belong up here. But I also was shooting for a much higher goal, and you could argue that 100, but it's still a failure. So, well, not a failure because I learned a whole bunch from it. But at any rate, so I have a great spreadsheet to help with funding, and there's lots of them available online too. Definitely get those because it'll help you figure out your tiers and figure out how to fill those different pledge levels. And it'll also help you figure out production costs and shipping costs and all that kind of stuff that maybe you're not thinking about. So my contact information is on here, and that's it.
All right, let's give him a big round of applause.